Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. My email is tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a lovely emerging vintage option. I always like to say that 1990s Rolex watches are fantastic because they're the cutting edge of vintage. They're the very newest watch that could also be considered old, so to speak. But what makes them really great isn't just that you're getting in on the ground floor for tomorrow's collectibles, it's that a lot of 90s Rolex watches, sports watches specifically, can still be worn the way they were designed to be worn. So they're not delicate and frail and vulnerable the way, say, a 50s or a 60s dive watch could be. So we have this Rolex Oyster Perpetual Sea-Dweller, reference 16600. It has an S serial, so 1993, and it's on a 93160 bracelet that is likewise an S serial, so circa 93, 94, so everything lines up. 40 millimeters in diameter, stainless steel. The watch is 14.7 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 47.5 millimeters, because this is a solid end link bracelet. Even back in 1993-94, it's got a span across the wrist that's a bit broader than the lug to lug, so 50.1 millimeters end link to end link, with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, it wears nicely, comfortably. It is flat enough that you could wear this with a cuff. Sometimes I have reservations, but so much of the thickness of the watch, if you take a quick look here, is actually the cupped case back, and that sinks into the wrist. So when it's on the wrist, it wears like a much thinner watch, basically like a Submariner. From lug tip to lug tip and end link to end link, we're not really pushing limits here. I believe you could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. It's not testing the limits on my wrist at all. And you can see how the bracelet splays out rather than pulls straight down. That means I've got a little bit of excess margin wrist to real estate relative to the watch. Now, it is a hollow centerlink bracelet. This is a very transitional period for Rolex, where many upscale models had already received solid end links, but the bracelets still feature hollow center links. So it's got a little bit of that Rolex rattle that's endemic to watch bracelets from Rolex made in this period. What it doesn't have is a lot of stretch. The play that's in it is very similar to what it would have had when it left Geneva. So it's not ropey in any way. It doesn't feel worn. It has a lot of life left in it. Even then, Rolex acknowledged that the best way to size your bracelet was to just put screws in the links and let people do the sizing at home. Now, we do have a fold-out dive extension, which you can see right here, giving you a little bit of extra margin to place it over a dive suit, such as a wetsuit or a dry suit. You can also use it over a thick winter coat or a sweater, which is always how I've used these extensions. I don't like to swim, but I do like to see my watch even on cold days. We have divots drilled into the clasp, so by moving the spring bar, you can relocate the bracelet across a broad range of fixing points and really fine-tune the fit. You can see that the embossed links, as well as the 5-point coronet here, are still very sharply defined, which indicates little and professional refinishing in the lifetime of this watch. There's a clamshell lock, so you can easily lock the clasp in place, the little tabs, so you can pop it open. You can see internally the clasp, and then verify the information that I just told you a few moments ago regarding the letter series of the bracelet, as well as the reference 93160. Now, the case is in great shape. Let's take a look first at the lug holes. This is where you really see defects on a watch that's been damaged or over-polished. And you can see the spring bar isn't protruding from any of these lug holes, which is a good sign that a lot of case metal is intact. There's satination on the lug hoods, polish on the case flanks, and because this is a Sea-Dweller, not a Submariner, we have a helium escape valve, so when internal pressure exceeds external pressure by 2 to 3 bar, that valve will open up and it will prevent the discharge of the seals in the sapphire. The watch is water resistant down to 1,220 meters or 4,000 feet. Some people call these Sea-Dweller 40s, some people call them Sea-Dweller 4000s. We do have here a true tritium dial. The bezel is more exquisitely patinaed, but the dial itself is original tritium, and I'm going to demonstrate that right now. As you can see, absolutely dead. The bezel is also 120 click, which which means it's wonderfully easy to place. Now, you can't see it in the dark, but in the day, it's still a valuable timing instrument with the period-appropriate anodized aluminum insert. The hands, as well as the indices, are all white gold to resist tarnish and oxidizing over time. And then we have a lovely and flawless black lacquered dial base. You can see the tritium signature indicating the amount of radiation present. One feature that's characteristic of traditional Sea-Dwellers is that you do have a date, but you don't have the Cyclops magnifier of the Submariner, and that's down to the thickness of the sapphire, which you can see as a mighty box section profile. It is quite thick. This creates a cleaner look. Though the watch is thicker than a sub, it often winds up looking more elegant than a sub because of the lack of the Cyclops eye. We've got a trip-lock crown in steel. You know that because it's 3 symmetrical dots. That's Rolex speak for trip-lock in steel. The watch uses the 3135 movement, which features a hacking seconds function, instantaneous jumping date, and of course a quick set so you can rapidly cycle the date if you wish to. 31 joules, automatic winding, 4 hertz beat rate, 48-hour power reserve. You can see the distinctive case back of the Sea-Dweller, one of the features that sets it apart from the Submariner. The movement features an overcoil hairspring shaped by hand to allow it breathe concentrically in any position, which allows it to earn a COSC Swiss chronometer certification. The movement features Rolex's Teflon-coated reversing wheels and bidirectional winding with a jeweled staff for the rotor. So this is the creamiest, quietest, and smoothest winding system likely ever devised for a mainstream watch. It uses a full balance bridge and a free-sprung balance for greater resistance to shock. So this watch is both highly water resistant and highly shock resistant. And again, being a 90s Sea-Dweller with a full tritium dial and correct bracelet and clasp, this is very much a vintage piece to collect, but being a modern watch with a sapphire crystal, a resealable case, modern running gear, and a well-intact bracelet, this is also a watch you can still take swimming and take on adventures. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Oh yeah, one more quick detail. Rolex would want you to know that this watch uses 904L steel, which is more resistant to corrosion in the face of sweat, sea salt, and industrial acid. Hey, the more you know.